Hey, hey, Garage Gang. Great timing. The beans are out. Seasons of greetings, Garage Gang. Welcome to the library. Yes, there's a library in the garage. It's a liminal space, much like the loading zone in the Matrix, where I can have whatever I want. Because it's a construct. Everything is fake, and nothing is real. Happy holidays! So, we're going to enjoy a little dinner time here, I guess, with the babies. We'll see if one of them decides to join me a little later. But once again, it's that wonderful time of the year where we hang out, we chill, we tell a couple stories together, and try and find a little slice of calmness and kindness in this winter season that many of us have some sort of hectic holiday thing that we have to endure, even if that's just other crazy humans doing other things. But of course, as advertised, this evening we have a couple wonderful guests, friends of the garage that you have seen here before, one of which has returned after a small hiatus, and we hope to see her again here in the future if someone gets to the process of starting up another game, or just haranguing her into doing more live play. And then, of course, someone we met for the spooky stream is returning with another excellent story, a little less for the kids this year, because this storytime stream is for us, those of us who are members of the garage. And, you know, if some of them are kid-friendly, so be it. Because good stories are for every age, mostly. So anyway, I've got the setup here. We've got the crackling. Oh, it is popping. Let me push that down just a little bit because I look like I'm a little quiet on my levels. There we go. Woo. Yeah, that seems a little better. We were having some real rockin' wind earlier today, so I was a little worried I might have to close up the window as it gets warm in here with all the lights, but it looks like we're good. Alright. We're probably not going to do the full suite of stories like we have in previous years, but we are going to go through a handful across the evening, and, you know, no less full of heart. But of course, keep an eye on our socials. Let me tap that in. Hi, buddy. This is my son, Basil. He's a scaredy boy. Hi. Nope. Nope. Okay. Socials. Make sure to follow us on socials, in the Discord, on the Patreon, to keep abreast of what happenings are going on, because Cozy Gerblin and I are on break right now, so although we don't have a lot of time, because this year's been hectic, y'all. We do have a couple days off, and I definitely want to do a catch-up stream for Breath of the Wild from yesterday. Maybe two, who knows? Maybe do and absolutely have one on New Year's Eve before midnight festivities. And then JC is also eager to get back to the farm. They're almost done marrying and divorcing everyone in their other game, so they have a lot of catching up to do in our farm. And then one of my gifts this year was a PlayStation 5 and a copy of Ghosts of Yote. So I will be doing a lot less farming on Magic Arena. Maybe I'll do like some short form content or something for that, because I don't think we're going to be doing a live playthrough of that unless it's explicitly requested by a lot of people. We'll see. But I think that one's going to be a just for me game. But I might have feedback on it. Anyway. So that's fun. But we came here for story time this evening, here in the garage, the Grognard Garage. So, without further ado, let's get into our first story. And surprisingly, or at least not that I can find in several years that I can remember, I don't have a copy of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, the book. So we got one of them this year, and for those of you who may or may not know, this is a story that is literally in my DNA. I think I through high school there was a production, and I think I was definitely injured and bled, and ingested various theatrical materials in pursuit of putting up a staged adaptation. So if you want that story, let me know. Maybe we'll do that later. There's even a recording on a VHS that needs to be ripped because that's the only copy. Yikes. Anyway, so this is The Nightmare Before Christmas by Tim Burton, macabre master. Let's read the dust jacket, shall we? Let me see if I can get the cool background there. In all the world, there is no other place like Halloween Land, and Jack Skellington is Halloween's most important figure. It's Jack who deserves the holiday's most macabre tricks and frights. Who devises the holiday's most macabre tricks and frights, and he's delightedly done it year after year. But this year, something isn't quite right. Jack has grown bored with the usual Halloween pranks, and the joy of seeing shock and horror on people's faces has faded. Then one night, while out for a walk in the woods, Jack sees something he's never seen before, a strange door carved into a tree. Stepping through the door, Jack stumbles into a world unlike any he's ever known. He finds himself in a bright, colorful place called Christmastown. Jack has finally found what he's been looking for and knows right away what needs to be done. He will bring Christmas to Halloween. Starring in Santa's role, this beautifully designed commemorative edition celebrates more than 30 years of the classic book's publication and features meticulously reproduced original artwork from the incomparable visionary Tim Burton. I don't know what this envelope is. I haven't opened it yet. I'm going to do that later. The Nightmare Before Christmas. Written and illustrated by Tim Burton. Updated Anniversary Edition. Make sure I don't miss a page. Ooh, cool art. While I read the forward here. I wrote the Nightmare Before Christmas poem long before I thought of it becoming a stop-motion film. It was always intended as a book, and I'm so happy that I was able to accomplish that original vision, and that people more than 30 years later seem to still appreciate it. Tim Burton. Pumpkin snowman, you say? Get the angle there. There we go. It was late one fall in Halloween Land, and the air had quite a chill. Against the moon, a skeleton sat, alone upon a hill. He was tall and thin with a bat bow tie. Jack Skellington was his name. He was tired and bored in Halloween Land. Everything was always the same. I'm sick of the scaring, the terror, the fright. I'm tired of being something that goes bump in the night. I'm bored with the leering my horrible glances, and my feet hurt from dancing those skeleton dances. I don't like graveyards, and I need something new. There must be more to life than just yelling, boo. Get the angle. There we go. Then out from a grave, with a curl and a twist, came a whimpering, whining, spectral mist. It was a little ghost dog with a faint little bark, and a jack-o'-lantern nose that glowed in the dark. It was Jack's dog, Zero, the best friend he had, but Jack hardly noticed, which made Zero sad. Oh, hi. There's one of my little familiars. That one's Belladonna. All that night and through the next day, Jack wandered and walked. He was filled with dismay. Boop. There we go. Gotta get the egg in there. There we go. In this economy? All right. Then deep in the forest just before night, Jack came upon an amazing sight. Not 20 feet from the spot where he stood were 3 massive doorways, carved in wood. He stood before them, completely in awe, his gaze transfixed by one special door. Entranced and excited with slight sense of worry, Jack opened the door to a white, windy flurry. And it's cat o'clock again. I think because I have all my equipment in here, and it's also evening time, which is usually when feeding and other activities happen. We're investigating things. Let's see. Can you? Okay. Whoa. We love a full page art piece. Yeah. Let's see Jack there, swirling around in the snowflakes. Bum, 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 bum. Jack didn't know it, but he'd fallen down in the middle of a place called Christmas Town. Immersed in the light, Jack was no longer haunted. He had finally found the feeling he wanted, and so that his friends wouldn't think him a liar, he took the presents-filled stockings that hung by the fire. He took candy and toys that were stacked on the shelves, and a picture of Santa with all of his elves. He took lights and ornaments and the star from the tree, and from Christmas Town sign he took the big letter C. He picked up everything that sparkled or glowed. He even picked up a handful of snow. He grabbed it all without being seen. He took it all back to Halloween. Angle, there we go. Back in Halloween, a group of Jack's peers stared in amazement at his Christmas souvenirs. But for this wondrous vision, none were prepared. Most were excited, though a few were quite scared. There we go. For the next few days, while it lightninged and thundered, Jack sat alone and obsessively wondered. Why is it they get to spread laughter and cheer while we stalk the graveyard, spreading panic and fear? Well, I could be Santa, and I could spread cheer. Why does he get to do it year after year? Outraged by injustice, Jack thought, and he thought. Then he got an idea. Yes, yes, why not? Okay. We'll do it. In Christmas Town, Santa was making some toys, when through the din he heard a soft noise. He answered the door, and to his surprise, he saw weird little creatures in strange disguise. They were altogether ugly and rather petite. As they opened their sacks, they yelled, "Trick or treat!" And then confused Santa was shoved into a sack and taken to Halloween to see Mastermind Jack. That's right, Boogie's boys gonna get you. In Halloween, everyone gathered once more, for they'd never seen a Santa before. And as they cautiously gazed at this strange old man, Jack related to Santa his masterful plan. "My dear Mr. Claus, I think it's a crime that you've got to be Santa all of the time. By now I will give you presents and I will spread cheer. We're changing places. I'm Santa this year. It is I who will say Merry Christmas to you, so you may lie in my coffin, creak doors, and yell boo. And please, Mr. Claus, don't think ill of my plan, for I'll do the best Santa job that I can." And though Jack and his friends thought they'd do a good job, their idea of Christmas was still quite macabre. Hello. Are you joining me? Bella. Oh, okay, bye. Sorry. I said her name. My apologies. Let's see. get the image there. Yeah. They were packed up and ready on Christmas Eve day, when Jack hitched his reindeer to his sleek coffin sleigh. But on Christmas Eve, as they were about to begin, a Halloween fog slowly rolled in. Jack said, "We can't leave, this fog's just too thick. There'll be no Christmas, and I can't be Saint Nick." Then a small glowing light pierced through the fog. What could it be? It was Zero, Jack's dog. Jack said, "Zero, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" And to be so needed was Zero's great dream. So he joyously flew to the head of the team, and as the skeletal sleigh started its ghostly flight, Jack cackled, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night!" I'll start with Zero here at the head of the team. "'Twas the nightmare before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was peaceful, not even a mouse. The stockings all hung by the chimney with care, when open that morning would cause quite a scare. The children all nestled so snug in their beds would have nightmares of monsters and skeleton heads. The moon that hung over the new fallen snow cast an eerie pall over the city below, and Santa Claus's laughter now sounded like groans, and the jingling bells like chattering bones. And what to their wondering eyes should appear but a coffin sleigh with skeleton deer, and a skeletal driver so ugly and sick, they knew in a moment this can't be Saint Nick." Little limbs. Woo. All right. From house to house, with a true sense of joy, Jack happily issued each present and toy. From rooftop to rooftop, he jumped and he skipped, leaving a present that seemed to be straight from a crypt. Unaware that the world was in panic and fear, Jack merrily spread his own brand of cheer. Gotta get all that in frame. There we go. All right, okay. He visited the house of Susie and Dave. They got a Gumby and a Pokey from the grave. Then on to the home of little Jane Neiman. She got a baby doll possessed by a demon. A monstrous train with tentacle tracks, a ghoulish puppet wielding an axe, a man-eating plant disguised as a wreath, and a vampire teddy bear with very sharp teeth. It's one page. Are we sure? Yeah? Okay. All right. Oh, here comes Baz again. Oh, there he goes. Okay. Oh, boy. They got out the ordnance. All right. There were screams of terror, but Jack didn't hear it. He was so much too involved with his own Christmas spirit. Jack finally looked down from his dark, starry frights and saw the commotion, the noise, and the lights. Why, they're celebrating! It looks like such fun! They're thanking me for the good job that I've done. But what he thought were fireworks meant as goodwill were bullets and missiles intended to kill. Then, amidst the barrage of artillery fire, Jack urged Zero to go higher and higher, and away they all flew like the storm of a thistle, until they were hit by a well-guided missile. As they fell to the cemetery, way out of sight, was heard, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." Jack pulled himself up on a large stone cross, and from there he reviewed his incredible loss. "I thought I could be Santa. I had such belief." Jack was confused and filled with great grief. Not knowing where to turn, he looked toward the sky, then slumped on the grave and he started to cry. And as Zero and Jack lay crumpled on the ground, they suddenly heard a familiar sound. "My dear Jack," said Santa, "I applaud your intent. I know wreaking such havoc was not what you meant, and so you are sad and feeling quite blue, but taking over Christmas was the wrong thing to do. I hope you realize Halloween's the right place for you. There's a lot more, Jack, that I'd like to say, but now I must hurry, for it's almost Christmas Day." Then he jumped in his sleigh, and with a wink of an eye, he said, "Merry Christmas," and he bid them goodbye. Last page. There we go. Back home, Jack was sad, but then, like a dream, Santa brought Christmas to the land of Halloween. Sometimes it be like that when it snows. The end. And that was Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas, or the book. All right. I get to take a voice break for a few minutes while we move to podcast story time mode with visual aids with Garage Fam LisaLisa, Violet November, and a telling of the fairy tale Jack Frost. So let me get her all set up here, and we will take it away from there.
Hello again, everyone. It's your favorite narrator, Lisa. Today, I'm going to be reading to you one of my favorite traditional Russian fairy tales, Jack Frost. Once upon a time, there lived an old Russian peasant and his wife, and their 3 daughters, Martha, Pasha, and Masha. Now the eldest, Martha, happened to be a stepdaughter, and therefore was greatly disliked by her stepmother. Early in the morning till late at night, her stepmother would do nothing but chide the unfortunate Martha, and give her more work than was good for her. She had to go out and get the wood to heat the stoves, wash the floors, feed the cocks and hens, milk the cows, and do a number of other things. Yet her stepmother was not satisfied, and would keep on telling her that she was a lazy, good-for-nothing girl, and that she had never done anything to keep their hut in proper order. Nor had she put the potatoes in the right dish, and all sorts of other various little domestic trifles, which do not belong to our story. Martha was, so to speak, always in hot water. Still, she wisely held her tongue, trying hard all the time to please her stepmother, who, unfortunately, was the sort of woman that nothing would please. As for the other 2 girls, they naturally took after their mother, and snubbed Martha right and left, so that the poor girl was scolded by all, except her father, who loved her dearly. Years went by, and these young girls grew into 3 beautiful young women, and they were all beginning to think of getting married. The father, though anxious to find them all good partners, was sorely afraid to part with Martha, who had become a wonderfully beautiful girl. Her stepmother, on the other hand, was anxious to be rid of her. She was not particular in what way, but she knew that Martha was the chief attraction in the house, and while she was there, the other 2 girls were not likely to stand any chance. Many a young man had already asked for Martha's hand, but she was in no hurry. She cared for none of them very much, so she refused them all. But no one had yet proposed to the other 2 girls. Her stepmother began thinking of what she had better do to get Martha out of the way. At last she thought of something that seemed to her a very good idea. Martha should really make up her mind to marry someone, she said one night to her husband. But she does not care for anyone. Besides, what should we do if she did? Who would feed the animals and look after the hut if Martha were to marry. Stuff! You surely don't want her to stop at home altogether and die an old maid? Certainly not. Yet who is to look after everything and cheer us in our old age? I am sure neither Pasha or Masha would care about that. Of course not. They will soon be snatched up. In fact, they would have been married now, only the dear, good girls thought that Martha, being the eldest, ought to be married first. The old man hesitated. Well, yes, wife, he said at last. My Martha ought certainly to marry. But the question is, to whom? She cares for no one. The woman laughed to herself. I know of a suitable husband, she said. Indeed? And who is he? Asked her husband, astonished. Why, Jack Frost. He is rich. He is handsome. What more could she want? Look at all the fir and pine trees. Look at the ice and the snow. They all belong to him, every one of them. I hear that he is looking about for a wife, and if he takes a fancy to Martha, which he is sure to do, no one could help it. How rich she would be! The old peasant opened his eyes and mouth very wide, and stood staring at his wife in great surprise. However, thinking that she knew best, he at least asked her, But where is this Jack Frost you speak of? Where is he to be found? In the forest, of course, you silly. Yes, but that's a rather large order. Well, look here. Early tomorrow morning, you must harness the horses to the sledge, take a large empty box, and drive into the forest with Martha. Drive until you come to a very dark pine thicket. In front of you, you shall see an ice hill, upon which stands a large fir tree. Put the box under this tree, and leave Martha with it. But don't tell her the reason for anything about it. Only just say that you will come back and fetch her in a few minutes, and that she must wait patiently till your return, and all is sure to turn out well, just as I wish it. But she will die of the cold. No, not she. Jack Frost will look after her. But the woman's idea was that Martha should sit on that box until she died of the bitter cold which surrounded the ice hill near which Jack Frost resided. The next morning the old man did as his wife had ordered him. He harnessed his horses and drove off with his daughter to the ice hill, where he left her to sit on the box under a big fir tree, telling her that he would come back soon to fetch her right away. Poor Martha sat there for a long time, trembling with cold, not knowing why she had to stop there, but only that her father had told her to wait for him and not move. She meant to obey him, come what might. She felt dreadfully miserable, as she saw that the day was drawing to a close, and yet her father did not come. Had he forgotten his promise, or had something happened to him? She tried to cry, but no tears came. Suddenly she heard a slight noise come to her ear. It was Jack Frost, jumping from tree to tree. When he saw her, he came nearer where she sat. Are you warm, pretty maiden? Are you warm? He asked in a cold, clear voice from the top of a fir tree. I hardly know, she said with a shudder as she tried to look up, but had not the strength to do so. Jack Frost jumped from branch to branch, coming nearer to her. Suddenly he sprang from the tree and stood by her side, his ice-cold fingers touching her shoulder. He was a handsome-looking old man, with a long white beard and curly white locks hanging down his back. He had a kind-looking old face, with a good-natured smile on it. Are you warm, pretty maiden? He asked again, stooping down to look into her face. Yes, she replied. I am burning. Martha was really freezing, but the cold was so great that she thought she was broiling. Jack Frost felt sorry for the poor girl, and coming closer to her, covered her up with what seemed to her fur cloaks and rugs. But she knew no more until she found herself at home again, surrounded by her father, stepmother, and sisters. She was clad in a beautiful silk dress with a lovely fur mantle. and the box, which was taken to the forest empty, was now full of beautiful presents. It was really funny to see how cross her stepmother became on seeing Martha actually back again with such a number of rich presents and things around her. She tried, however, to keep her rage down as well as she could. She never thought for a moment that her stepdaughter's trip to the forest would have ended in this way. Nevertheless, she took the old man aside and said proudly, "Was I not right in making you take Martha to the forest? See how rich she has become. Jack Frost has evidently taken a great fancy to her. I said he would, and if you had not been in such a hurry to go and fetch her back, he would have married her by this time. She would have been richer still, but it is no good talking about it now." Her thoughts were very different from her speech. "No, my dear," she thought to herself, "I am not going to be beaten by you." A few days later, the woman ordered her unfortunate husband to harness his horses and take her own 2 daughters, Pasha and Masha, into the wood to try their luck, to see what Jack Frost would give them. Away went the old man with Pasha and Masha to the pine forest, and told them to sit on the box under the fir tree, just as Martha had done. Then he left them and went home. At first the girls enjoyed it very much, and talked and laughed together. "It doesn't seem such a queer idea," said Pasha, "to send us here to find a load of dresses and things, just as though we cannot buy everything we need from the village, or even if we go to a trip to Moscow. We should have to wait long in that case, Pasha, as we are not likely to get there in a hurry. Mamma said that we should see some very handsome young men here if we waited long enough. I wonder whether that is true." "I don't know. All I know is that it is getting frightfully cold," and Masha shivered as she drew her warm furs around her. But Pasha did not mind the cold. She did not feel it half as much as her sister, for she was blessed with the gift of the gab, and chatted away right merrily, laughing and talking about every possible thing. "What did you say, Pasha?" Masha would ask almost every minute. "I am so cold I can hardly hear what you are talking about. I wonder whether those young men will come soon." "Have patience, my dear. Men always keep one waiting. They can't be punctual to save their lives. I don't believe they will come. Say what you like, but supposing only one man comes, which of us do you think he will choose? You or me?" "Maybe he will take you," snarled Pasha. "No, he will most likely choose you, my dear," retorted Masha. With that they began to sneer at each other, till they heard Jack Frost jumping from tree to tree, shaking them as though they were so many bells. Now it so happened that the girls did not know that it was Jack Frost who had given Martha all those presents, and that it was for him they were waiting. "There, Masha," called Pasha. "I hear something. I believe the young men are coming at last in their troikas. Do you hear the bells?" Jack Frost came near them. "Are you warm, pretty maidens?" he asked. "Are you warm, my dears?" "Warm, you old stupid," cried Pasha, looking at him. "Warm indeed. Oh yes, of course we are. It is a wonder that we are not dead with the heat." "What are you waiting for?" he asked. "What is it business of yours?" Jack Frost smiled. "We are waiting for our lovers," said Masha, who thought her sister had been rather rude. "But I suppose they have lost their way in this horrid, dark forest." "Queer place to wait for lovers," Jack Frost said. "I hardly think they would be such asses to come here. Are you still warm, pretty maidens?" "Get away with you, you old stupid. Can't you see that we are nearly frozen to death?" cried Pasha angrily. Still, Jack Frost kept on coming closer and closer to them, and at last he leapt from the fir tree, touched them with his ice-cold hands, which froze them to death, for Jack Frost had somehow taken a dislike to these girls, and thus Pasha and Masha departed this world of sorrow. In the morning the woman sent her husband to go fetch them home again, with all the treasures that she thought they would be sure to have. Away went the old man to the pine forest, where, to his horror, he found the dead bodies of his 2 daughters laying on the ice hill. He took them up, kissed their pale, cold faces, put them in his sledge, and drove them home to his wife, who came out smiling to meet him. But alas for those smiles, they died anyway, just as Pasha and Masha had done. "Where are my children?" she cried out. The old man, after uncovering the rugs, displayed the bodies of the 2 unfortunate girls lying dead in the cart. Angry words did not remain long unmuttered by their mother's lips. "What have you done to them, you wicked, wicked man? My poor little darlings! They were the delight of my life, my Pasha, my Masha. What shall I do without them? My darling little doves, what did you do to them? You horrible old wretch, tell me this instant." Leave off talking that nonsense. This is no time for scolding. You told me to take the girls to the forest. You thought of nothing but riches all the time, and this is what you get for it. You can't find fault with me. I did what you told me to do, and these are the thanks I get." The woman, after a little more scolding and howling, came to herself again, and actually forgave her husband, who had done nothing. After that, they lived happily for many a long year, never forgetting, however, to bury Pasha and Masha. As for Martha, she soon married a rich and handsome young man, and lived happily ever after, as people always do in fairy tales.
Hello again, welcome back. Thank you so much to our constant companion, Lisa, for that reading. We love alternate tales here in the garage. As last year was evidenced, we had a little more of a spread of backgrounds and origins and such. So, delightful. Moving along, this one is a favorite in the home, so I wanted to make sure to include it in this evening's festivities. The Polar Express by Chris van Allsburg. The Polar Express, written and illustrated by Chris van Allsburg. To Karen. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand, and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests, where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran, along rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor. "It's the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They're gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That's where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." Just barely see the train down there at the bottom. "Look!" shouted one of the children. "The elves!" Outside, we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers, when the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped, and the conductor led us outside. Well, there's the big guy. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound. It was like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped on into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee, and he asked, "Now what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. Then he gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" The clock struck midnight as the elves roared their approval. Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared into the cold, dark, plain polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But then the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home again. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. These pages are not as easy as I thought they would be to... There we go. All right, okay. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. "Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shake the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me as it does for all who truly believe. Moving on from one night heist to another, we rejoin our friend Heather as she talks about a bit of a different Christmas party.
Hi, my name is Heather, and tonight I will be reading A Die Hard Christmas Story. Written by Doogie Horner and illustrated by J.J. Harrison. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and up in the tower, everyone was partying except for one wallflower. John McClane missed his wife. Things just weren't the same since Holly moved to the West and changed her last name. He tried to win her back, but still she said no. While, unbeknownst to them, there was trouble below. A truck had pulled up, and who should disembark but 14 men whose intentions were dark. They spoke not a word and unloaded big crates. They cut the phone lines and locked all the gates. Carl swept the ground floor, shooting every guard dead, with visions of bearer bonds danced in his head. John took off his shoes, making fists with his toes. It actually worked. Well, what do you know? When out in the lobby, there arose such a clatter. He sprung to the door to see what was the matter. When what to his wondering eyes should appear, holy crap, there are terrorists here. John hid under a table where no one could see and watched Hans question Mr. Takagi. "I'm going to count to 3. There will not be a 4. Give me the codes to open the locked door." "I don't know the codes, so go ahead and shoot." "Okay," says Hans Gruber, and ruined Takagi's suit. John tried to call the cops by pulling an alarm, but instead called the bad guys who tried to cause him harm. But John killed Tony, who had very small feet, and sent him to the terrorists as a Yuletide treat. He put a Santa hat on the German, eyes all aglow, wrote, "Now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho." Carl was furious. Tony was his brother. He chased John across the roof and they shot at each other. John was able to escape through the ventilation shafts. "Come out to the coast," he said. "We'll have a few laughs." At Nakatomi Tower, Sergeant Powell appeared. He checked the whole lobby and saw nothing weird. He was pulling away but didn't get far before Marco landed on the hood of his car. Powell drove away backwards, screaming in fright, "Welcome to the party, Powell." More police arrived, the FBI and a SWAT team, but Hans didn't mind. It was all part of his scheme. More rapid than eagles, his henchmen, they came. He radioed and shouted and called them by name. "Now Eddie, now James, now Franco, now Yuli. On Fritz and on Carl, Harold, long and unruly." They shot the SWAT tank with a surface-to-air missile and knocked it away like the down of a thistle. Now John McClane was angry indeed. He blew up 2 terrorists and called them jerkweed. Ellis told Hans, "Bubby, I'm your white knight. Hans shot him dead, giving the hostages a fright. Hans went to go check the explosive fuse and saw the poor John wasn't wearing any shoes. John fled from Carl and Hans, but alas, he had to run barefoot over sharp broken glass. His feet, how they hurt, his soles oh so bloody. John crawled to the bathroom and called his good buddy. John was weary and ready to throw in the towel until he got a pep talk from Sergeant Al Powell. Powell was chubby and plump, a right jolly old cop. He trusted the cowboy in his tattered tank top. But a reporter was probing into McLean's life and revealed that Holly was actually John's wife. Hans quickly flipped over the gold picture frame. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. McLean." His clothes all tarnished with ashes and soot, John staggered to the roof, bloody and barefoot. The explosives were wired the rooftop with care in hopes the hostages soon would be there. John warned everyone the roof would soon blow, and the chopper strafed him with a high-powered ammo. Round his waist he tied a fire hose tight and screamed an oath, jumped into the night. He dangled in the air and gritted his teeth while flames encircled the tower like a wreath. Fiercely fighting his way back inside, John yelled, "Hans!" He was done trying to hide. He limped to the vault like an old man on crutches, only to find Holly in his filthy clutches. John dropped his gun, put his hands on his head. It seemed he and Holly soon would be dead. But with a secret gun taped to his back, John shot Hans in a surprise attack. Hans fell out the window, still holding Holly's arm, and slowly, deliberately raised his firearm. The tenacious villain held on by his nails till John unhooked Holly's watch and said, "Happy trails." Bearer bonds fluttered like fresh fallen snow as Holly embraced her blood-spattered bow. So Merry Christmas to all. Be kind to one another. And most of all, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Thanks for listening. Merry Christmas.
All right, welcome back. Hell yeah. We love a modern classic. So, as advertised at the top, this season's version of this stream is going to run a little short this evening. I think we're going to be done right after this one. But we appreciate you dropping by either live here in the chat or later on for the VOD or even on YouTube. And of course, as heartfelt as always, if you haven't yet, please do the things that make the algorithm say that this is good. You know, click on the things, engage with the things, and you know, let us know if you want to see more storytime content. I've been discussing doing musical content, and of course, I'm always trying to find the energy to organize tabletop gaming. So we'll see if we can make that happen in 2026. And of course, motivation from requests of you, the Garage Gang, to do those things, help push that along. And of course, contributions from the Patreon help make that more and more a possibility as we have a little more cash to help with a little more bandwidth. But that behind us, let's move on to my last story of the evening, our last story of the evening. My very own copy of How the Grinch Stole Christmas that I've had for many, many years. How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Oh, let me get the fire back on. Hold on. There we go. We'll turn it down just a little bit. All right. How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. for Teddy Owens. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos. Staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm, lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're excuse me. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated. The noise, 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 noise. Gotta get the whole feast in there. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, cool. Then the Who's young and old would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, feast, feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roasted beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something that he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together. With Christmas bells ringing, they'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said. If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead. So he called his dog Max, then he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Get up!" and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Whos lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. When he came to the first little house on the square, "This is stop number 1, the old Grinch Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags, one by one, up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I will stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who. Little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light out on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed that tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for the fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1:15 dawn. All the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a-snooze when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings and trappings. Well, this was kind of working. Well, there we go. Woo! 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh-pooh to the Who's," he was Grinch-ishiously humming. "They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, boo-hoo." "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, this sound was merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. It started down at Whoville. The Grinch... he stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or the other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville, they say, that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast, and he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. Season's greetings, Garage Gang. Thank you so much for joining me for this story time this year. As with every year, we appreciate you guys hanging out and joining us for these various streams. We hope to see you on the next one, of course. And stay tuned to the socials for our next few streams this season and onward. Thanks again, and we'll see you again here later in the garage. The Grognard Garage. GG.